Looking at every single LEGO Star Wars Slave One ever produced by LEGO Star Wars. YouTube, as you see in my intro, this is every single LEGO Star Wars Slave One ever produced, including Jango Fett and Boba Fett Slave Ones. You can see this includes all the promotional, posters, polybags, mini building sets, keychains, and any additional sets that were released with a Slave One. I'll be going in chronological order from the oldest to the newest, and then I'm gonna do Jango Fett's first from the oldest to the newest. Obviously, I don't have the 2025 one yet because it hasn't been released yet, unfortunately, so I can't do that one. But I'm gonna then do Boba Fett to the oldest Boba Fett. So let's do that. Let's get into it and let's get cracking. As promised, we're going to be beginning the Star Wars video here about these Slave Ones with the Jango Fett. Now, the first one is the most beloved LEGO Star Wars Slave One ever made. I'm just going to move these out of the way here just to show you guys what that one is. And that's the 7153 Jango Fett Slave One. I'm just going to tilt the camera up a bit here. It's the Jango Fett Slave One when it could be called a Slave One. It has beautiful background here with all the rocks, and looks like Mustafa there in the background for some reason. With 358 pieces here, 8 to 12 as the age here, and this would be setting you back a good pretty penny for about $1,000 here nowadays just to get this set because of the minifigures here. So on the sides, it does show off the Jango Fett and Boba Fett there on the side. And the back still has the alternate builds of the Slave One. All these play features like being able to open the door, shoot out those bombs. Then you got a little compartments for a bit more bombs there. And Boba Fett, sorry, not Boba Fett, Jango Fett putting the bombs there in the compartment. You'll obviously be able to put it in landing position and taking off, and you can actually swoosh it and around to make it look like it's flying. Then we've got a couple scenes here from the actual Star Wars movie showing up Boba Fett and Jango Fett there in the corner. And then the back model, which also shows some of the cool sets that came out here in 2002 when this model actually came out. So this is a pretty cool model. Love this set. It is a bit overrated, I must say, but it's beautiful to have as the first ever Slave One by Jango Fett. So that's the first set. Now, there hasn't been many releases of the Jango Fett whatsoever, but the second release was this 2003 mini building set. This included a Jedi Starfighter, or Obi-Wan's to be exact, and Slave One chasing Obi-Wan Starfighter there through all those rocks or asteroids. So you got 53 pieces. Doesn't say anything interesting there on the side. The back of the model shows the other mini building sets that came out, like the Hoth one, as well as the Pod Racer one, and as well as the X-Wing and TIE Advanced. So very interesting, and you could actually make this TIE bomber from all these pieces, which is a pretty cool little neat idea. Now, the next one, we didn't see anything for the next 12 years besides this little Slave One polybag here. Nothing too interesting. This was in the Rebels era, 2015. Nothing too interesting. No minifigure or anything like that. But I think it was giving us a little bit of hint up to what was going to happen around 9 years later. Then we got, this is not a set, but this is technically still something related to LEGO Star Wars, which is this Flying with the Fets. This showed off the UCS the Jango Fett UCS Slave One being released in 2025 with the arm printed Jango Fett there, as well as Boba Fett smiling there in the middle. Pretty interesting little poster. So nothing too crazy. It has a little bit information of the back, but that is technically something about Jango Fett's Starship now, they call it. So it's a bit interesting there. After years of waiting, LEGO Star Wars finally had the guts to release a Jango Fett Starship. Now, what we know why it has changed to Starship up there is because slave is a derogatory word, or a racist word almost, that you could say. A lot of people do bring that up as a racist term. And That's why Lego just stopped making the Jango Fett Slave One sort of thing. You'll see that in a bunch of these Boba Fett's Slave Ones that turn into starships. But unfortunately, what can we do? We can still buy the set and enjoy it. 2,970 pieces, 75409, 18 plus Lego Star Wars set. This was a beautiful remake, I would say, of the Boba Fett Slave One that we got back in 2014, I believe, which is in this video there in the top right corner, which we're going to take a look at as well. Now, the side shows off the Slave One there from the side with Boba Fett and Jango Fett sitting in the cockpit area. And then the back shows it being all nicely on display with the dimensions as well. If you're needing that for your bookshelves or anything like that, would be very helpful. We've got the back of the model, the cockpit area, and a little scene here from Attack of the Clones where it landed, and also it being in landing position as the Lego set itself. So beautiful set to finish off the Jango Fett collection. I know we have another one coming out this year. I do already have it on pre-order, so make sure to stay tuned for that video. Sorry for moving the camera, but that is technically the last Slave One for now. So let's take a look at the Boba Fett, because that is a mouthful that I have to go through. There's a lot to go through, so make sure to grab some popcorn, subscribe before we get to the Boba Fett ones, and let's take a look at them now. As you can see in front of me, we have over 10 sets of Boba Fett Slave Ones here on the table. I'm going to be taking a look at them from the oldest to the newest, grabbing the first 7144. This one's in bubble wrap, but I'm going to essentially show this one here. So this was a set that was the first ever Slave One to be produced, which was made in the year 2000. Now, this 2-in-1 here is one with Luke's land speeder, so this is kind of a special edition here. But basically what it is, this would be compatible with that 2003 Cloud City that is massively expensive now. 165 pieces, and included Boba Fett and Han Solo and Carbonite in that printed brick. The back doesn't show anything too interesting, but that being the first Slave One, it's pretty interesting. It is literally just a brick-built Slave One. Next set is a very, very small one, being a polybag released in 2004. It's the 6964 Boba Fett Slave One. It is literally just those grey, sort of like light green pieces. Sorry, not grey, light green pieces. It is just the Slave One here in this blue polybag. As you can see, 2004 there printed at the bottom. Nice little set to be getting that year. It is still considered a Boba Fett Slave One, which is why I included it in this video. But it's not a standalone set with a minifigure, so to speak. So let's take a look at the next one. What we've got is the 6209 Slave One, 537 pieces, and which I believe is one of the best Boba Fett Slave Ones ever made. It still competes with some of these new ones that are released nowadays. I still enjoy this build quite a lot. Frankly, I've built a couple of these in my time, so I've got one sealed for my sealed collection. We get 4 minifigures, being IG-88, Dengar, a Bespin Guard, and a Boba Fett. So very nice little minifigure selection. Obviously, we're not getting the arm printing one that was in the Cloud City, unfortunately. But it is a very, nevertheless, interesting little set that we got here in 2006. The background shows Mustafar there at the top. We have a little landing pad, which is very badly edited, I would say. It looks photoshopped as hell. And then we actually got the Boba Fett loading up some bombs there in the back, being able to drop those bombs going in flight position, and some more bombs there with the B-Wing, A-Wing, Death Star, and the TIE interceptors there in the background, showing off that wave from that 2006 wave. Very little interesting set here. Love this set. But let's get into the next one, which is a bit of a smaller one. I'm not going to cut you guys out here. It's all on the table. There's not much to cut. I like to keep things very transparent and just show you guys everything one by one. The second thing here is the Slave One exclusive bag charm. So this was a bag charm that got released in 2008, and it is a Boba Fett Slave One. Even though it doesn't look like it that much, it doesn't have the colors there, no green colors whatsoever. But this would go on your bag, you would clip it on, and it would wave as you walk or put your bag down. It would just be in floating position. There's nothing there on the sides. The back just shows that the elements are actually glued, so this whole thing thing is glued, so you won't be able to take it apart. But that's a little nice 2008 little cool little addition, I would say. Now, the next one was in 2000, and I had to go to 0.5 mode again just to show the size of this thing. This is a bit bigger than that 2006. So this was released 4 years later in 2010. Upgraded minifigures, a bit different of a selection. Upgraded Boba Fett. So this is the first time we're seeing an upgraded Boba Fett. 8097 Slave One, still called Slave One, going strong. A bit of a different background here. Looks like Cloud City, maybe there in the background. Shows Boba Fett, Han Solo, Bosk, and Han and Carbonite. So weird how they didn't say Han Solo and Carbonite, but there you go. I mean, this was one of those sets that everyone had as a kid. This was that year where Lego was really taking off as Star Wars sets, I would say. We get some of some of the sets from that year in 2010, like the infamous Turbo Tank, which is outslaying that 2025 Turbo Tank. The back shows a bit more of the play features, but there's nothing else that's not too standard here in the set. It is just a 2010 Boba Fett Slave One. There's no exclusive minifigures here that are too crazy. Most of these are fairly priced still on the used market if you were to pick this up. Now, the second one here is going to be another small one, but is a rather weird one here. We've got these 219 Brickmaster polybag. I'm just going to zoom this guy in. So this was the Brickmaster polybag. This was the introduction of these massive size satchels of polybags for the first time by Lego. So there was a Turbo Tank released in Brickmaster as well, and a couple other ones here. It's got 76 pieces, so it's pretty a lot for a polybag here. It has the colors and everything, so you can see the pieces actually floating around in there. And obviously 2011 was the year for the set. The only real value in this set would be it being sealed, because it is a Brickmaster, so they got discontinued after a year of just having them, so it wasn't doing that well in the Lego community. Now, 1 year later, we got a Star Wars Celebration, and this is the most expensive. Yes, this is the most expensive after the Jango Fett Slave One of the Slave Ones in the entire collection. This was released at the Star Wars Celebration exclusive in 2012, being a limited release of 1,000 ever made. So you can see I've got number 272, and it says Star Wars Celebration exclusive there on the side. 81 pieces, and it's this little tin here. Very interesting little set, and this actually looks very similar to that Brickmaster polybag. Then it has the Boba Fett there in the top saying Celebration exclusive, and this one's actually open, so you can actually see it had a instruction manual in there and a bag of pieces. So a very nice little interesting set here to have. Being over $1,000, this is definitely a good thing to have as a collector, I would say. Then we move on to some of the crazier things. Everybody, is the 75060 first ever UCS Slave One ever to be made. This is the Boba Fett Ultimate Collector Series Slave One, released in 2014, and it had a big number of pieces to be able to make this set. And yes, I do already have the set built, so don't complain in the comments. You don't build your sets, they're meant to be built. I literally don't have space. So I don't know what you want me to do, but I am making these videos because I have them and I enjoy Lego Star Wars. But nevertheless, we have it in display position there in the corner. And instead of being flipped like the Jango Fett in the vertical position, we've got this horizontal position with the Cloud City there in the background and the entire Slave One produced at the front. Then it shows off the dimensions on the top of the model and the 5 minifigures included. Well, I don't count this, so they actually did say Han Solo and Carbonite in this one instead of Han and Carbonite. A Bespin Guard, Stormtrooper, Han Solo and Boba Fett. This was the second ever unprinted Boba Fett ever produced, not counting the counting the 2003 Cloud City, which is pretty interesting. First ever modified new version. Then the back shows off the model in landed position, as well as some of these scenes from the movie that you could see, and some of the play features of the model itself. So this is nevertheless the best Boba Fett set ever made. in 2014. 19, we had 2 releases of a Slave One. I would say we've got the 20th anniversary normal Slave One, 20th anniversary edition. See their pictures in the back. So I'm actually going to zoom in here because it is a bit smaller than the other ones. We've got an additional Princess Leia from the 2000s collectible minifigure with the 20th anniversary logo in the right corner. Then we got another 2 unique minifigures to this model, being 4 Loom, a Boba Fett, of course, a Zukus, and a Han Solo, as well as a Han Solo in Carbonite. We get these nice little lining of the silver around the entire box. 75243, and this will set you back actually a pretty penny for nowadays, considering its value. And then we also have a little showcase of all the play features, and you can actually hold it now and swoosh it around. Then it shows off the collectible minifigures you could collect in that year of 2019, and then also a little memorable picture of the original Slave One, which I did show you in the earlier minutes of this collection. Then after we had this one, we have a polybag released, which was this 6+ polybag here, limited edition. This came in a catalog that you could get. Just a little mini build, nothing too crazy. That's all you get. Then moving on, we get this 2019, I believe, 2019 or 2021. 2021, we just did 2019. 75312 mini Boba Fett. So this is what we're getting, but the Jango Fett version, but this was based on the Mandalorian. So now they've switched back to Boba Fett Starship here. This was the one we saw, and then we get the Mandalorian and Boba Fett with arm printing. So that's the 3rd Boba Fett we get with arm printing. Then we got a flying position there in the corner and landed position with a little box there in the back, as well as some of the play features. Nothing too interesting there. Then the last Boba Fett that we ever got released so far is the arm printed Boba Fett Starship Microfighter 75344 mini Microfighter here with Boba Fett sitting there, which is pretty cool. Nice way to get the arm printed Boba Fett, but you ruin it for collectors, I would say. But honorable mention, which is the last one, it is this keychain that got released with the Jango Fett Slave One, which is part of the Jango Fett, and this was released in 2024 or produced in 2024, as you can see there in the background. But that wraps it up for this video for every single Slave One ever produced. Make sure to like and subscribe to my videos. Let me know in the comments below which one is your favorite, and that wraps it up for me. Thank you again, and peace.